Well, we're here today at Mill Farm Fisheries in Wootton. It's a little village in Leicestershire, and this lake has got loads of fish in it, and the fish are all of a pretty good size. Loads of carp, all about 7, 8, 9, 10 pound, and it's perfect for the Pellet Waggler. And I've got one on now. You can see it's a decent fish just by the bend in the rod. All I've been doing is feeding sort of like 2, 3 pellets all the time, constantly, around 30 yards out, and we're just casting a float over the top. I've just set the float around 2, 3 foot deep. And to be honest, every bite is pulling the rod round. There's no need to strike at these fish. They're feeding so aggressively at the minute. And this fish is just about ready. He's trying to take me into the lily pads, but I think he's just about ready for netting. There we go. Usually, you can just tell when they start to tire, and this one's just about ready. It looks a decent fish. He's a sort of a, because the water's so clear here, you can see the fish well down. He's a mirror. He's about 8 or 9 pound, I would have thought, which is pretty good fun on match gear. Here we go. There we go, he's in the net. And that is a proper lump of a fish. Like I say, we've caught 2 or 3 others already. We've only been here maybe half an hour. But this is pretty typical of the stamp that we've been catching today. Go and catch a few more, but before we do that, let's talk about the rigs that we're using and the gear that I've set up today. Well, we've had a few chucks now without a bite, so I suppose we've got a bit of time to talk through the tackle that I'm using today. I've set up 2 rods. The first one is Beastmaster Pellet Waggler rod. I've set it up at 11 foot because we might be fishing a little bit deeper than normal today. If I was only fishing sort of like a foot deep, short chucks, I'd probably only set it up at 9 foot. But because fishing a bit deeper, maybe up to sort of 5, 6 feet, you've got a lot of line below the float, it's awkward casting, the longer length is perfect. Now, on the reel, I've got 020 line. I use Technium Match and Bolo as a line. It's pretty good. I can get it to sink if I want to, I can get it to float if I want to, so it works perfectly for me. It's also really strong for its diameter. It's great for what I use it for. All my heavy duty sort of reel lines are Technium Match and Bolo. Now the rig is so simple. I'm a big fan of simple rigs. Because we're fishing quite deep, I'm using a normal sort of standard straight waggler. Now if I was fishing shallow, like I said, foot deep, I'd use a little stubby polystyrene balsa waggler, polystyrene or balsa waggler. They settle really quickly, but because they're so short and stubby, they get affected by any skim on the water and they move around in your peg too easily. And because of that, you obviously, your presentation suffers. When you're fishing a bit deeper, you want your bait to stay in position for a little bit longer. You want a longer waggler. Now all I've done is I've locked the waggler on the line with shot or stots. Don't damage the line in any way. And it just means that your float's fixed, but I can still alter the depth as the day goes on. And all I've done is put 2 below the float and 1 above the float. And occasionally I'll just move these up and down the line, alter the depth, just if I feel I need a bit of a change. And simply, I've tied a loop in the end of the main line, and I've attached the hook length, loop to loop style, to the main line. The hook length's 018, using silk shock line, 018 silk shock line, and the hook's a size 18 eyed hook with a small band on the end of the hair. And all I've been doing is placing either a 6mm or an 8mm pellet in the band, casting out sort of every minute or so, feeding 2 or 3 pellets over the top, twitching the float into the feed, and most of my bites, to be honest, I've not had to look at the float, they've been just pulling the rod tip round. The only other bit of kit that I've set up today is a bomb rod, just for casting over the top. It's quite deep, this lake is, but some of the bait will still get to the bottom, and obviously a few fish will settle over the pellets. So it's worth setting up a bomb rod just to cover that. Again, simple setup, bomb, free running on the main line, same main line as the Waggler rod, down to 2 stots again, just above the loop, the hook length loop. Hook length, exactly the same hook length materials and length. And again, just place a pellet in that band, we'll cast it over the top. Obviously when the fish are on the bottom, bomb's much better than a Waggler for catching them fish. And because all the components are the same, it just makes my fishing a lot easier. This is the same, you know, it's a Beastmaster feeder rod, so it's exactly the same sort of setup as we've been using on the Waggler. Same reel, same lines, everything's the same. Just makes my fishing much more comfortable. Right, we'll give the peg a rest, let's see if we can catch a few more. Well, the fishing's slowed down on the Pellet Waggler, so as you can see, I've just gone and chucked the bomb out. I mean, all I can catch is the odd skimmer on the Pellet Waggler and the odd roach, and I'm just going to see if there's any bigger fish just on the bottom that have sort of settled on the pellets that have made it through the small fish down to the bottom. It's quite deep, this lake is. It's probably about 10 or 15 feet where I've been casting and feeding, so yeah, we'll just see if there's anything down there. One thing you've got to do though when you do switch this bomb is keep on feeding. Not only are you feeding your shallow swim, but that constant fall of bait through the water is helping when you're fishing the bomb as well. Obviously feeding is a massive part of Pellet Waggler fishing. Now what I like to do is while the float's out of the water, just before I'm going to cast, go out 2 pellets. Again, 2 pellets. The reason I'm only feeding 2 is just so you can keep everything a little bit tighter. When you start feeding loads of pellets, it starts sort of spread. Then you cast your float on top of the pellets that you've just fed. You wait for an indication, maybe twitch the Waggler in a little bit, then 2 more pellets straight over the top of your Waggler, and then reel in, repeat the process. As you can see, it's quite a busy method, and what you've got to be doing is reeling in, feeding all the time. It's this constant fall of bait that attracts the fish, and obviously eventually you'll get them queuing up, and it's just a case of fish coming straight to your float as it lands. I've just seen a fish probably about 10 yards short of where I've been feeding, and it looked a big shape under the water, and because we're not getting loads of indications from carp anymore in the feed, I thought it was worth just to have a bit of a chuck to it, and I've chucked my pellet waggler, it's landed just in front of it, and then all of a sudden the rod's hooped over, so it's worth just concentrating a little bit and just keeping your eye out for any other cruising fish. It's took me in some weed now, so there's loads of pondweed close in on this lake. I've just got to hope that this comes out. It seems to be. I've lost 2 fish already today, and I don't want to lose this fish really. It's going solid all the time. Well, this fish has just come out of the weed. And it's a decent fish as well. You can see on the surface all the weed that's been churned up. It's worth taking your time with fish. I see a lot of people rushing when they're playing fish, and it's not usually worth it, especially for big fish like this. And even when you're in a match, you know, a fish like this is worth a lot in a match. There's no point rushing. The hardest part is actually hooking the fish in the first place, so you don't want to lose the fish once you do actually hook it. I mean, we're using sort of almost, we're using match tackle really for almost bordering on specimen sized fish, so it's worth just taking your time. There you go, he's in the net, and he's a beautiful fish. Look at that. What a cracking fish. That is the biggest fish of the day. And I'll tell you what, because the fishing's slowed up so much, I think what we'll do is quit while we're ahead. And look at that, he's even got his fin up for you, look. And we'll end with that. Let's get him in the net. I mean, I've had a brilliant day today. I've caught some carp, F1s, skimmers. Obviously, this is the biggest fish I've caught today. So, fantastic day, really. I'll put these fish, put him in the net, I'll put this fish straight back. I hope to see you on the bank sometime.